Assurance of becoming a Buddha. At that time, the world-honored one spoke in verse. In my Buddha eyes I see that in future life, after innumerable eons, this Kashyapa will be able to become a Buddha. In future lives, he will go before and make offerings to 3 million billion world-honored Buddhas. For the sake of Buddha wisdom, he will observe noble practices carefully and make offerings to the highest and most honored of people. Having studied and put into practice all the unexcelled wisdom, in his final incarnation he will be able to become a Buddha. His land will be pure, with lapis lazuli for ground. Many jeweled trees will line the roadsides, with golden cords marking off the roads. Those seeing it will rejoice. It will always be fragrant, with rare flowers scattered everywhere. And many kinds of rare, wonderful things will add to its splendor. The land will be level and smooth, without hills or holes. The many bodhisattvas will be countless in number. They will have gentle dispositions, attain the great divine faculties, and honor and embrace the Buddha's great vehicle sutras. You multitude of monks, I have something to tell you now. Give your full attention to what I have to say. My great disciple Subhuti will become a Buddha, whose name will be famous features. He will make offerings to innumerable trillions of Buddhas, and, following the practices of the Buddhas, gradually fulfill the Great Way. In his final incarnation, he will acquire the 32 characteristics and be as imposing and wonderful as a mountain of jewels. His Buddha land will be unsurpassed in purity and splendor, so that all who behold it will cherish and delight in it. In its midst, the Buddha will liberate innumerable beings. Following his Buddha Dharma will be many bodhisattvas. All of them will have keen faculties and turn the irreversible wheel. His land will always be adorned with bodhisattvas. The Dharma preached by that Buddha will be revealed through innumerable divine transformations beyond conception. You multitude of monks, give me your complete attention. In what I teach there is nothing that is not true. This Katyayana will give various kinds of excellent things as offerings to Buddhas. After Buddhas have passed into extinction, he will put up stupas of the 7 precious materials and give flowers and incense as offerings to their remains. In his final incarnation, he will acquire the wisdom of the Buddha and reach impartial, proper awakening. His land will be pure and clean. He will save innumerable trillions of living beings. And from all the living beings of the 10 directions, he will receive offerings. The radiance of this Buddha, none will be able to surpass. His Buddha name will be Jambunada Golden Light. Numberless, uncountable bodhisattvas and shravakas, rejecting all ideas of being, will adorn his land. Then the world-honored one once again addressed the great assembly. This, my disciple, the great Mahamagdlayaya, after casting off this body, will see 8,002 million billion world-honored Buddhas. For the sake of the Buddha way, he will make offerings to them and revere them. Where these Buddhas are, he will always observe noble practices, and for innumerable eons embrace the Buddha Dharma. After those Buddhas have passed into extinction, he will put up stupas of the 7 precious materials, with golden spires visible from afar, and with flowers incense, and music, he will make offerings to the stupas of the Buddhas. Having gradually fulfilled the Bodhisattva way in the land called mind-pleasing, he will be able to become a Buddha, named Tamalapatra Sandalwood Fragrance. The lifetime of that Buddha will be 24 eons. For the sake of human and heavenly beings, he will always preach the Buddha way. You, my disciples, with full dignity and virtue, 500 in number, will all receive assurance of becoming Buddhas in the future. About the causes and conditions of previous lives, mine and yours, I am about to speak. Listen carefully. The Parable of the Fantastic Castle City. The Buddha said to the monks, "Once, in the past, innumerable, unlimited, inconceivable, and countless eons ago, there was a Buddha named Excellent in Great Penetrating Wisdom Tathagata, one worthy of offerings, truly awakened, fully clear in conduct, well gone, understanding the world, unexcelled leader, trainer of men, teacher of heavenly beings and people, Buddha, world-honored one. His land was named Well-Made, and his eon was named Great Features. Monks, since that Buddha passed into extinction, a long, long time has passed. Suppose, for instance, that someone took all of the earth in a 3,000 great thousand-fold world and ground it into ink powder, and then passed through 1,000 lands to the east, dropping one speck as large as a speck of dust, and again passing through another 1,000 lands, dropping just one speck. Suppose he proceeded in this way until he had exhausted all the ink made of that earth. What do you think? All these lands, is it possible even for mathematicians or their disciples to count all of them and know the number of all the lands visited? No, it is not, world-honored one. Monks, by the power of the Tathagata's insight, I observe that distant time as if it were today. That Buddha, before he had left home, had 16 sons, the first of whom was named Accumulated Wisdom. Each of his sons had various kinds of rare and attractive toys. But when they heard that their father had attained supreme awakening, they threw away the things they had valued so much and went to pay their regards to the Buddha. Then all these 16 princes, having praised the Buddha in verse, pleaded with the world-honored one to turn the Dharma wheel, saying together, "World-honored one, preach the Dharma, sympathizing with human and heavenly beings, and bringing them great comfort and abundant benefits." Then the kings of the Brahma heavens, with one mind and voice, spoke in verse, saying, "Hero of the world, most honored of people, we beg you to proclaim the Dharma. By the power of your great compassion, saving living beings from their suffering and agony." Then the excellent in great penetrating wisdom Tathagata silently consented. He said, "This is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is the elimination of suffering. This is the way to the elimination of suffering." Then he taught the 12 causes and conditions, namely, ignorance causes actions, actions cause consciousness, consciousness causes name and form cause the 6 kinds of sense, the 6 kinds of sense cause contact, contact causes sensations, sensations cause desires, desires cause attachments, attachments cause existence, existence causes birth, birth causes old age and death, anxiety and sorrow, suffering and anguish. If ignorance is extinguished, then action is extinguished. If action is extinguished, then consciousness is extinguished. If consciousness is extinguished, then name and form are extinguished. If name and form are extinguished, then the 6 kinds of senses are extinguished. If the 6 senses are extinguished, then contact is extinguished. If contact is extinguished, then sensation is extinguished. If sensation is extinguished, then desire is extinguished. And if desire is extinguished, then attachments are extinguished. If attachments are extinguished, then existence is extinguished. If existence is extinguished, then birth is extinguished. And if birth is extinguished, then old age and death, anxiety and sorrow, suffering and anguish are extinguished. When the Buddha taught this Dharma in the midst of the great assembly of human and heavenly beings, 6 million billion myriads of people, because they refused to become attached to anything and freed themselves from fault, obtained profound and wonderful meditation, the 3 kinds of knowledge, the 6 divine powers, and the 8 kinds of liberation. Likewise, when the Buddha preached the Dharma for a second, a third, and a 4th time, tens of millions of billions of myriads of living beings, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, because they also refused to become attached to anything, were able to free themselves from faults. From this time on, the number of Shravakas was innumerable and unlimited, beyond calculation. Meanwhile, the 16 princes left their home while still young and became novices. Their senses were sharp, and their wisdom bright. They had already made offerings to hundreds of thousands of billions of Buddhas, had observed noble practices in purity, and sought supreme awakening. Together, they said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, all of these innumerable tens of millions of billions of great virtuous Shravakas are already accomplished. World-honored one, now you should preach the Dharma of supreme awakening for our sake. Once we have heard it, we will study and practice it together." World-honored one, we are determined to gain the insight of a Tathagata. What is deep in our hearts, the Buddha must already know. Then the 8 trillion people in the assembly, led by the wheel-turning saintly king, seeing that the 16 princes had left their home to become novices, wanted to do the same. Hearing this, the king permitted them to do so. Then that Buddha, responding to the pleas of the novices after 20,000 eons had passed, in the presence of the 4 groups, preached this great vehicle sutra named the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, the Dharma by which bodhisattvas are taught, and which Buddhas watch over and keep in mind. When he had preached this sutra, the 16 novices, for the sake of supreme awakening, all received and embraced it, learned and recited it, and deeply understood it. While this sutra was preached, the 16 bodhisattva novices all accepted it in faith. The Buddha preached this sutra for 8,000 eons without resting. When he had finished preaching it, he entered a quiet room and meditated for 84,000 eons. Then the 16 bodhisattva novices, knowing that the Buddha had entered the room and was meditating quietly, each got on a Dharma seat and for 84,000 eons taught and explained the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra everywhere to the 4 groups. In this way, each of them saved 6 million billion myriads of human beings, as many as the sands of the Ganges, demonstrating and teaching it to them, enriching them and giving them joy, and leading them to aspire to supreme awakening. After 84,000 eons had passed, excellent and great penetrating wisdom Buddha arose from his meditation, went up to the Dharma seat, and quietly sat down. Addressing the whole great assembly, he said, "Such bodhisattva novices as these 16 are very rare. Their faculties are keen and their wisdom bright. They have made offerings to innumerable tens of millions of billions of Buddhas. Under those Buddhas, they have always observed noble practices, received and embraced Buddha wisdom, and opened it up for living beings, leading them to enter into it. Monks, I tell you now that these disciples of the Buddha, the 16 novices, have all attained supreme awakening. In all the lands, in every direction, at the present time, they preach the Dharma and have innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions of bodhisattvas and shravakas as their followers. 2 of those novices became Buddhas in the eastern region. One is named Akshobhya and lives in the land of joy. The other is named Sumeru Peak. 2 are Buddhas in the southeastern region. One named Lion's Voice, the other Lion's Character. 2 Buddhas are in the southern region, one named Space Dweller, the other Ever Extinguished. One of the 2 Buddhas in the southwestern region is named Imperial Character, the other Brahma Character. One of the 2 Buddhas in the western region is named Amida, the other Saving All Worlds from Suffering. Of the 2 Buddhas in the northwestern region, one is named Tamalapatra, Spiritually Powerful Sandal Fragrance, the other Sumeru Form. Of the 2 Buddhas in the northern region, one is named Cloud Freedom, and the other Cloud Freedom King. The Buddha in the northeastern region is named Destroyer of all the world's fear, and the 16th is I, Shakyamuni Buddha, having attained supreme awakening in this world. Monks, when we were novices, each of us taught and transformed living beings equal in number to innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions times the number of sands of the Ganges. And those who heard the Dharma from us attained supreme awakening. Because the wisdom of the Tathagata is hard to believe and hard to understand. All those living beings, innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, who were transformed at that time, are yourselves, monks, and those who will be my Shravaka disciples in ages to come after my extinction. Monks, if a Tathagata knows that his time of nirvana has arrived, and that the assembly is pure, firm in faith and understanding, deeply understands the emptiness of things, and enters into deep meditation, then he will gather together all the bodhisattvas and shravakas and preach this sutra to them. In the whole world there is no second vehicle for attaining extinction. There is only the one Buddha vehicle for attaining extinction. You should know, monks, that with skillful means the Tathagata reaches deeply into the nature of living beings. He knows that they delight in lesser teachings and are deeply attached to the 5 desires. For their sake he preaches nirvana, so that if they hear it, they will receive it in faith. Suppose there was a bad road, 500 leagues long, which was steep, wild, difficult, deserted, and far from where anyone lived, a truly frightening place. And a large group of people wanted to go along that road to a place where there were rare treasures. There was a leader, a teacher, a guide, who was knowing and wise, knew the difficult road, where it was open and where closed, and was experienced in leading groups that wanted to pass over it. The group he was leading became tired along the way and said to the guide, "We are utterly exhausted and afraid as well. We can't go any further. Since the road before us goes on and on, now we want to turn back." The guide, a person of many skillful means, thought, "What a shame that these people want to give up on the great and rare treasures and turn back." Having thought about it in this way, he uses his powers of skillful means to conjure up a castle city, which appeared about 300 leagues down the difficult road. Then he said to the group, "Don't be afraid. You must not turn back. Look, see that great city ahead. There you can stop and rest and do whatever you want. Enter this city and you will soon be completely at ease. Later, when you are able to go toward the place of treasures, you should leave this city castle." Then the hearts of the exhausted group were filled with great joy, and they exclaimed about such an unprecedented thing. "Now we can surely escape from this dreadful road and find some peace and comfort." So the group went into the fantastic castle city. Thinking they had been rescued from their difficulties, they were soon calm and comfortable. Then the guide, seeing that the group was rested and no longer weary, made the fantastic city disappear. He said to the group, "We have to go now. The place of the treasures is close. I created this large fantastic city a little while ago just for you to rest in." Monks, so it is with the Tathagata. At present, he is functioning as your great guide. He knows that the bad road of birth and death and afflictions is steep, difficult, long, and never-ending, but that it must be taken and traveled over. If living beings hear only of the one Buddha vehicle, they will not want to see Buddha or approach him, but think that the Buddha way is long and never-ending, and success something that can be attained only after long suffering from arduous work. The Buddha, knowing that this frame of mind is timid and weak, uses the power of skillful means, preaching the two kinds of nirvana in order to provide a resting place along the way. If living beings remain at these two stages, then the Tathagata will say to them, "You have not yet understood what you have to do. The place where you remain is only close to Buddha wisdom. Take note and think some more. The nirvana that you have attained is not the real one. The Tathagata, through skillful means, has only taken the one Buddha vehicle, made distinctions within it, and spoken of the three." The Buddha is just like that guide who, in order to provide a place for the travelers to rest, conjured up a great castle city, and, after they rested, told them, "The place of treasures is close. This city is not real, but only something I conjured up." At that time, the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant once again, spoke in verse. When the guide knew they were rested, he assembled them and said, "Now we should go forward. This city is only a fantasy. Seeing that you were exhausted and wanted to turn back midway, I used my power of skillful means to conjure up this castle city for the time being. Now you must try very hard so that together you can reach the place where the treasure is. I too, in the same way, am the guide for all. I see the seekers of the way becoming discouraged midway through and unable to cross the steep road of birth and death and afflictions. So by power of skillful means, I taught nirvana so they could rest, saying, 'Your suffering is ended. You have finished your work.' When I know they have reached nirvana and all have become arhats, then I gather everyone together and teach the real Dharma. Through their powers of skillful means, Buddhas make distinctions and teach three vehicles, but there is really only one Buddha vehicle. It is for a resting place that the other two are taught. Now I teach the truth for you. What you have reached is not extinction. To gain a Buddha's comprehensive wisdom, you have to make a great effort. When you have gained comprehensive wisdom and the 10 powers of the Buddha Dharma and acquired the 32 characteristics, then that is the real extinction. The Buddhas, as guides, teach nirvana to provide rest, but seeing that you are rested, they lead you on to Buddha wisdom.